You are in the fabulous world of finance.
I am.
But you're doing something a little special. Tell me about your firm.
Sure. So Roundhill was really founded with the goal of bringing financial products, and we think that ETFs are really the superior product to bring to this audience that younger people care about, that they're passionate about, that they want to invest in, where they want to see the underlying companies really succeed and flourish. And really what we've done with our first ETF is focus on this exciting segment of esports. People who are watching other people play, measured in the hundreds of millions on a global scale.
Esports and investment and finance don't necessarily go together, especially for younger demographics that are just thinking about the gaming aspect of it. What made you want to merge the two together?
Yeah, so I think really what we saw was all this excitement invested on the private side. So $4.5 billion were invested in...
$4.5 billion.
$4.5 billion with a B were invested last year in 2018. You're seeing Bob Kraft get involved buying into an esports team, Drake, Michael Jordan, all of these icons from pop culture wanting to get involved in the space. And really what we said is, let's create a vehicle for the average investor to have a way to play the space and really buy into this whole concept.
Not just the Bob Krafts of the world.
Not just the Bob Krafts of the world. Not all of us can put in, $50 million into a team. So that's really what led us to create the product. And really what it focuses on is giving people a diversified way to play the space. So you have game publishers, unlike traditional sports where you and I tomorrow could go start a pickup basketball league. You need the buy-in from the companies who are actually making the games, the IP, whether it's Fortnite or League of Legends or Dota. That's part of the portfolio that we've put together. Then you have streaming platforms. So unlike traditional sports, you're really seeing more of the consumption taking place on streaming rather than linear TV. That said, we're starting to see some of the games being broadcast on linear. Another piece would really be the live events. So the companies that are organizing these live events, like the Fortnite World Cup that we have coming up this weekend at Arthur Ashe. And then you have hardware plays, so the picks and shovels, if you will. Right. These gamers need to have high-end gaming PCs. They need to have the proper mice, the proper headsets, and really putting that all together in one way. The ticker symbol is nerd, because we're ETF nerds, we're also gaming nerds. It makes a ton of sense.
Well, what you're doing is really interesting, because I think when you look demographically, younger audiences are probably very familiar with esports, probably not that familiar with ETFs and the investment business. Yeah. Older demographics are probably very familiar with the investment side of things, not as familiar with esports.
No, you hit on two of our biggest challenges, which is educating that younger, whether it's millennial or a little bit older audience, as to the benefits of diversified investing and right. ETFs and everything else. And then for the older audience, it's really the education on the esports side of things.
Let's go back to Fortnite this weekend. From the investor perspective and from someone that is really trying to analyze this industry, what are you excited about with the Fortnite World Cup, and what is going to draw more attention to just what the future of this could be?
It's a $30 million prize pool. It's in New York City, 12,000 seat arena. I think it's really going to kind of be a prove-it moment for the U.S. in terms of how well esports can really translate on the big stage. And for us, I think that being on the New York Stock Exchange, being on Wall Street, and having financial focused media companies cover it really lends to this concept of gaming and esports moving more to the mainstream. Historically, a lot of it's taken place online, whether it's in chat rooms or on platforms like Twitch. Now you're seeing eyeballs in kind of the more mainstream way pay attention, and our ETF is doing a part of that, but it's just the beginning in terms of more people understanding kind of what's going on.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.